Okay, I assume you. Okay, so let's get started with the today's session. Are you guys able to see my screen now? Guys, can you see my screen? Okay, great. So the today we will be discussing the constructor. In the last class, we have discussed objects and classes. What are the objects? What is classes? Once we get done with that constructor, we'll move on to the OOPS concept, which are basically abstraction, polymorphism, interface, inheritance, and all those stuff. Okay. So, can anyone tell me what do you mean by a constructor and what is the difference between a constructor and a method? Just if anyone has an idea about it. Okay, so no worries on that. So the constructor are used to initialize the object state. What I mean by an object state is basically whenever you create an object, the constructor will get invoked automatically, right? Because the constructor is directly attached to the class. A constructor also contains a collection of statements, i.e. the instructions that are executed at the time of an object creation. So how do we create an object? That's what we have discussed in the last class. If I just remind you quickly, right? So let's say we have a class A, and if I want to create an object of a class A, I will write A obj is equal to new A, right? Correct. But what happens when we write in that manner, right? So the constructor will get invoked automatically. First, let's discuss about why is it needed, and then we'll move on to the implementation. So let's say I have a box, right? And if we talk about the box should have a length and the breadth. Without the length, breadth, and the height, it cannot be a box. But when it comes to creating an object, the box will now exist in the computer memory because the object is the one I told you in the last class. Class does not requires a memory allocation, but the object does. So whenever you create an object, it requires a memory. But then a box can be there with a no value defined. Is it possible? Is it possible to call a box, right, without having its dimension? That's nowhere a box. If something doesn't have a dimension, it's nowhere close to box, right? So what exactly we gonna do in that case? We'll create a constructor that would be called as a default constructor, or we can create our own constructor as well to give the values, to give the to initialize the values of whatever the length, whatever the width, whatever the height. So constructor are used to assign the values of the class variable at the time of an object creation. This happens. This can be done either two ways. Either programmer has to do, right? Or the second thing, the Java itself can do that, right? If you don't do anything with that, the Java has the capability of doing it by itself, right? So let's have a look at the when the constructor is getting called. So each time an object is created using a new keyword, at least one constructor, right? Whenever we do have a new keyword, at least one constructor, it could be a default constructor, is invoked to assign the initial values to the data members of the class. Let's have a look at it over here. So here we are creating an object of obj as the name, and the class is a geek. So here I want to create an object for the class geek. So how exactly I'm going to create an object? I will write the same name as what we have there shouldn't be a new keyword. That's the thing that they just wanted to explain. But what exactly it is doing? It is basically calling a default constructor. And if you want, you can override this constructor as well. We'll see what override means. Override means basically changing the definition of the default constructor. What exactly was being involved. So what happens whenever you create a class A, right? Let's say you have a class A, okay, and you are calling an object A obj. This is a class. Right? So this is a class, and A obj is equals to the new A. Okay. If we are doing like this, and it doesn't have any constructor, so the Java automatically creates a by default constructor, right? This way. Even if you are not creating this, the Java will create by themselves. If you are creating it, it will override the values. Whatever we have given, it will take those values. This is what this is given in the example. So first, let's get interacted with what are the rules for writing a constructor. Right? So the very first thing for writing a constructor, it should be same name as the class in which it resides. A constructor in the Java cannot be abstract, it cannot be final, it cannot be static, or it cannot be synchronous. But it may have an access modifier, right, to control the access I in which way the other can call it. Right? So we may have a private public protected constructor, but we cannot have a constructor as an abstract, final, static, and the synchronous. There are various type of a constructor, no argument constructor. A constructor that has no proper parameters is known as a default constructor. If we don't define the constructor in a class, then a compiler will create a default constructor with the no argument for the class. If we write a constructor with the argument or the no argument, then the compiler does not create a default constructor. That's what overriding means. If we are writing something, that will get override with what the compiler has to create it. If we are not writing anything, then the compiler will automatically create that. Default constructor provides a default value like 0, null, etc. depending on the type. So let's say if I don't define anything right over here, if I don't define anything, and here I have the 4 variables, right? So let's have a look at the example over here. Okay. Okay, so what exactly they are doing? They have a class geek. Okay, inside this class geek, I have 2 variables, number and the name. Here there is a default constructor. Within that default constructor, I am just printing a function which is basically a constructor call. So geek1 is equal to the new geek. Here we have created a constructor over here. Here we have created an object. The object name is a geek1. Now, what will happen when I create an object? Can anyone tell me what should be the output for this? Guys, let's give it a try. It might be wrong, it might be correct, but let's think. Okay, default constructor. Okay, but we have already replaced the default constructor with our constructor, right? So this is the time it will get involved because we have already overridden the function. What should be the output for the whole program? They are not supposed to be in the same class, correct? Whenever we create an object, okay, good, null comma 0, correct. So let's have a look at the output, and so the output would be constructor called. Okay, the reason behind that is, let me explain it to you. Right. So we do have a geek1, new geek. Which class we have, which object we have created? That we have created an object for a class geek. So this is an object we have created. Guys, num and num are inside the same class, right? Okay, let me explain it to you. Then we can discuss if you guys have any doubt. Right? So geeks, for the geeks, we have created an object geek one is equals to the new geek. Right? So geek one is an object we have created for this class. Now, whenever we create an object, the default constructor will get involved. If we haven't written any of the if we haven't written any of the overridden constructor. But here we have already defined a geek constructor. So whenever we create an object, the constructor will get invoked automatically. And which constructor will get invoked? This constructor will get invoked. So by writing this line, this constructor will get involved, and whatever the command we have written over here, it will get executed at the same time. Guys, is this clear? Since we have created an object for the geek class, right, and we have overridden the values of that, right? So once we have overridden the values of that, it will not call the default constructor, right? Because the default constructor doesn't exist in. Since we have overridden the values, so it will call this constructor, and the constructor call will get printed. So with this line, we will print the constructor call. Now, geeks dot name. So if we don't define any values back, it will automatically take it as a null. Since the type of the name is string, right? So it will return with a null. And the type of a num is basically integer, so it will return with 0. Any doubts, guys? Is it clear for everyone? Anyone has doubts? Okay, sir, class. I didn't get your question. Can you be specific? Because they are inside the same class. If we have a look, the num and the name are inside the same class, which is geek, right? The class DFG is altogether a different class from where we are creating an object for the class geek. Okay, let's move on to the next concept. Guys, please keep posting if you guys still have any doubts. Right? So parameterized constructor. What is a parameterized constructor? A constructor that the parameter is a constructor that has the parameters is known as parameterized constructor. If you want to initialize the field of the class with its own value, then use a parameterized constructor. Right? So sometimes you must have seen it like it that we do have a constructor. Right? So this is a constructor we have created, which has the same name as that of a class, and it doesn't have a return type. Right? We are passing the two names over here. These are basically the name and the ID. What is the relation between the class geek and the CFG, sir? Which, okay, you mean, okay, this and this? Correct. It doesn't have any relation until unless we are creating an object. Right? So since we have created an object for the geek class, that consider this as a separate class, right? This as a separate file, this as a separate file, right? But since this class is public, I can access this class anywhere. Is that clear? So the geek one is equal to the new geek. Here we have created an object, and that's where it got related. Okay, great. So parameterized constructor. Okay, geek, we have created a parameterized constructor string name int id. So and after that we are assigning this dot name is equals to the name, this dot id is equals to the id. Okay, now if I have to create an object for this, right, I need to pass these values. So now for creating an object, it should be like geek1 is equals to the new geek. Adam is basically the name which you have passed over here, and the ID which is equals to the 1. Right? So the ID we have passed as a 1, and the name is as Adam. Okay. So what exactly we are doing over here is we are creating an object for a geek class, which is basically geek1. After creating this object, I can access these names with the geek1 dot name and the geek1 dot id. Okay. So can anyone tell me what should be the output for this? Correct, correct. So it should be geek name, then we need to write Adam, and the geek ID we need to write 1. That's the exactly the same output that we are going to get. Right? So that would be correct. Geek name, Adam, and the geek ID 1. Good. Right? So this is all about the parameterized constructor. Now let's have a look at the constructor overloading. Right? We do have a method overloading as well. Method overloading we'll be discussing in a separate session. We have planned it like that. So we have. Okay, can anyone tell me what do you mean by an overloading? If you have ever read it. Okay, why we are using this in the program? Good. So this is basically give the reference of this name. Right? You couldn't write it name is equals to name, right? Okay, good. So this is basically represents that we are assigning the values to this name. Correct? Instead, because these are the same name, how will you differentiate? Let's say I have passed the item comma 1. Right? So here I got, whenever I am calling this, let's say, good question, right? So if I just invoke this, that will call me this, and here I will get geek, then that will call the Adam, the whole value would be Adam, and the ID would be 1. Right? Then I need to assign this name to the value this. Right? So I cannot write name is equals to name. Otherwise, how the compiler will identify that which name is which name, right? So that's why for referencing this dot name, this represents basically this class, dot name basically represents this. Is that clear? Okay, great. Cool. Multiple methods having the same in the C allocation goes on by default, not in Java. For which allocation? No, you can define it. If you have a different name, you can define it that way as well. But since the names are same, the name and the name here is same. If you have written here, let's say n and the I, right, you could have defined it that way. The compiler will able to understand it. Since the names are same, then we need to be cautious about it. Right? Okay, good. Constructor overloading. So correct. Multiple methods having the same name. Good, good, but a different parameters. Okay. So like the methods, we can overload the constructor for creating an object in a different way. Compiler differentiates the constructor on the basis of number of parameters, type of the parameters, and the order of parameters. Okay. So we do have a constructor geek, we have a constructor geek. We have created a 3 constructor for the geek itself. Right? One is basically have a string name inside it. One has the name and the age inside it. One has an ID inside it. So geek string name, the constructor with the 1, right? So this is basically let's how exactly we are calling it. Let's check it out. So the geek2 is equals to the new geek, and we are calling it as a Shikhar. Shikhar is basically of a type string. right? So these are the three constructors I have. Constructor will get involved first, second, or the third. Here we have passed, we are calling it as a geek shikhar, which is a type of a string. Now, which constructor will get involved? Correct? Correct. So this constructor will get involved. The reason behind that is it only contains one parameter and which is a type string. Correct, correct. This looks like the same, but we'll discuss that later because since we are discussing a polymorphism, constructor here. So the geek string name, if we call this way, right? If we call the geek3 is equal to the new geek, the name is 26. Right? So it will call the second constructor that we have just created with the name and the age. Right? And similarly, if we are passing it as a long integer, then the third will get called. Good. So the output would be similar as that, what we just discussed. Okay, how the constructor is different from the methods in the Java. So there are few key points to remember. The constructor must be as the same name as that of a class within that which is in which it is defined, whether it's not necessary for the method in the Java. The constructor do not return any type, while the method have the return type or the void, it does not return anything. If we carefully see, we are not defining what should be the return type of this, right? And actually we don't have to. That's the properties of a constructor. Constructor is called only once at the time of an object creation, while the method can be called any number of times. Right? So constructor will get involved automatically whenever you create an object. Okay. Can you guys predict the output for this one quickly? Correct. Good. So the output for this is going to be the 20. The reason behind that is in the Java, the members variable can assign a value with the declaration. So we have created an object named as T1, and if we call the T1.t, it will initialize the value of a T with the 20 and it will return that 20 itself. Good. Okay, what should be the output for this one? Okay. Error, no intent declaration. Okay, 40. Okay, 20. Okay. So let's have a look at the answer. No intent declaration. I don't see we have put an int over here and we don't have to put it again explicit because we have already put it over here. The int we have defined over here. Right. So let's have a look at the output. So the output is going to be the 20. The reason behind that is since we call this, right, t1 is equals to the new t, the value assigned inside the constructor override the value initialized with the declaration. So what is the value we have defined over here? Right? It is going to be the 20, right? But whenever we define our own constructor, right, the value will get updated. T will get updated to the T is equals to 40. Right? So here, even if you have defined it as a 20, what it really doesn't matter if you have updated it, if you have override it using with the writing of with writing a constructor which is a default kind of a default constructor, but we have override that constructor. Right? So it is no without parameters constructor we have created just to initialize the values of a t. So whenever we do initialize the values inside a constructor, it will get replaced whatever you have with the default one. Okay, these are the some what I would say. These are the some key points which you need to remember. Right? Any doubts, guys? Okay. Okay, let's have a look at this first. But we didn't use this. Okay, where correct, correct. We don't have to. There was no need of doing that. The reason why we have used it over here, right? We have used it, correct. We have used it over here. The reason behind that is the name and this name was same. Right? So the compiler will not able to identify that which name is which name. Right? But here, if you see, we have only one variable which is t, and which is quite obvious. And this t is going to be this. Sorry, not this. Yep. So this t is going to be this t. There is no other t we have. Is that clear? That's why we haven't used this. Even if you write this, it would be the same. Yep, yep. Okay, let's try to answer it. Okay, good. Correct. So quite easy question. It's a simple program. We are creating an object for the point class. Right. So the point p is a new point that will basically invoke this one, and it will call this 10 comma 10. If it is calling this 10 comma 10, this is again invoking the parametric constructor, which is basically this. Right? Mx is equals to the x, and it will assign the value 10 to that. Now, whenever we do a get x, it will return me the mx. And if it's returning the mx, the value of an mx is equals to 10. So that will return the 10 itself. Okay, let's have a look at the one simple question. Guys, any other doubts? How is your practice session going on? Is it good? Just give me a minute, guys. Okay, good. Okay, so guys, here I'm conducting a poll, which is basically because what I think that we can increase the level of practice session, which is happening from 4 to 10. Right? So I want you to listen you guys first that how do you feel about the practice session? Should we increase the level of the question? So I will spoke to the mentors and ask them to increase the level of the question if you guys say, and if you guys want to stick with that, you can mark it as a no. So the practice session which is happening in the evening. So I'm launching a poll for you guys. Maybe you guys can quickly try to answer it. Right. This is regarding the practice session, which usually happens in the evening. They give you a couple of questions and try to ask you to solve these. Right. Okay, give question based on the time complexity. Correct, correct, correct. I have already explained to them. So going forward, like they will also give you the time complexity, right, along with the question. Because I feel this is really important whenever you do like sit for the any kind of a company interview. So that plays an important role. Okay, and give easy questions. Okay, cool. Correct, correct, correct. We are discussing the easy, moderate, and once you get through the Java itself, we'll discuss the hard level questions as well. We are not restricting ourselves, but this is for the practice session that you guys having in the evening class, right? Or maybe in the evening time that you guys are having. Okay. Okay. So yep, I will convey the same to the others, right? To the mentors as well. So they will prepare the question based on the time complexity as well. Any other input, guys? Yeah. Okay, let's try to read out this question and see how many of you can do it. Okay. Okay, what is big O of n? Correct. So the big O of n basically represents, let's say, if I'm writing over here as the big O of n, right? So big O of n indicates that your code should only contain a single for loop, or even it may contain the several for loop, but it should not be the nested one, right? So your loop should only run from 0 to the n number of times, right? If it's exceeding that n, then it's not going to be the big O of n time complexity, right? So either it should have a for loop, right? Either it may look like this, int I is equal to 0, I should be lesser than n plus plus I, or it may look like this while I is lesser than n. While loop is also kind of a for loop, right? And we can keep on incrementing the I with an initializing value of for I is equals to 0. So basically, if you have a look at the time complexity for this, it should be the big O of n, and the space complexity we need to use is the big O of 1. Can we use count plus plus? Of course, you can use the count plus plus because the count variable is going to take only one time complexity. The count is a static variable or maybe a constant that you are going to create, right? So if you are defining a constant, which will again, let's say you are defining a count is equals to 0, right? But if you are defining this count is equals to 0, that's taking an auxiliary space, that's taking a constant space for me, right? It's taking a constant space, so you can do that. But if you are doing a count plus plus inside of for loop, then it's take a time complexity of a big O of n with a space complexity as a constant. Is that clear? Okay, ai plus 1 minus a of I is not equals to 1. Okay, correct. Okay, good. Okay, on what basis we are saying that it is big O of n or big O of n square? Is it some? Okay, on what basis we are saying? On we are saying it on the basis of how many for loops, how many iteration we are doing to take all these numbers, right? Let's say maybe we can just have a look at it over here. Just to give a quick intro. Okay, so if I ask you guys itself, let's say this is an array I have, okay, the array of a length L, and if I'm writing in this way, just to give a quick explanation about the time complexity. Okay, sorting should be done. Okay, but correct sorting is required, and if you do the sorting, it's going to be the big O of n log n. right? We'll discuss all those, right? Okay, can anyone tell me what would be the how many times the count value will get printed? Let's say the value of n is equals to the 10. Okay, and n is equals to 10. Guys, this is just an example. It's not related to this question. Okay. Let's say n is equals to 10 I have. Okay, this n is equals to 10. So how many times this count value will be printed? Correct. It's going to print it 100 number of times. The reason behind that is it is inside this loop, it is inside this loop, and after that we are printing the value of a count variable. Is that clear? So it will get printed 100 number of times. So if I ask you the time complexity for this function, it is going to be the big O of n square. Right? Because how many times the inner function will get executed? Whatever the things you have written over here, how many times it is going to get executed, that is exactly what is time complexity. Right? If I just remove this one, right? If I just comment out this line, so if I just remove this line and this bracket, right? Now if you see how many times the count variable will get printed, only 10 number of times. So if I say now the time complexity of this function is going to be the big O of n only, because we are printing the count variable only for once. This statement, whatever is written inside, how many times that particular function is get executed with respect to the n, that is what the time complexity. Is that clear now? Okay. This is not something which is related to the question. Okay. So, okay, now, guys, do you guys have any solution to it? The very first solution I heard from you guys is basically we can check whether the difference between those numbers is equal to one or not. But here the numbers are here the numbers is not in the sorted order always. It may or may not be in the sorted order. So that approach is fails when you don't have the numbers in the sorted order. Is that clear, guys? Any other approaches apart from that? Right? The numbers that they have given looks like in the sorted order. Okay, finding an average. Okay, what after this? The number of inputs is equals to the missing number. No, the number of inputs is not equal to the missing number. Okay, let me explain the question first. Those who didn't get it, given an array of a size n minus 1 such that it only contains the distinct integer in the range from 1 to n. Right? So if they have given a number 5, that means there can be any number missing in between 1 to 5. Right? So let's say if I have the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, and here can be missing number can be 3 as well, missing number can be, but only one number is missing. It cannot be like that the two numbers are missing. So whatever the value of an n we have, the number of elements inside the array is equal to the n minus 1. Okay, if you find the average, we will get the missing one. Okay, 5 plus 3, 8, 8 plus 2, 10, 10 plus 1, 11, 11 by 4. Is it? Is that what you mean? Okay. Okay, so let me explain the few approaches to solve this question. Okay. There can be a number of approaches we can solve, with which we can solve this question. Correct. The very first approach I see it as, so what I can do is I can just find out the sum for the each and every number, right? So what I am going to do is I will iterate from I is equals to 0, I should be lesser than n minus 1, I plus plus I can do, and I will initialize my sum variable as 0. I will explain you the pros and cons of using this method as well. But before that, let's try it out. So sum is equals to the sum plus, that should be array of I, right? So okay, the reason why we have taken the n minus 1, because the length is the n is going to be the 5, but we have the number of elements only 4. Okay. So what I am trying to do is I am trying to find the sum of each and every numbers in this. So that would I will store it inside the sum variable. So the sum is equal to the sum plus array of I. Now, if I just subtract the sum variable, or maybe what is the sum of first n natural numbers? Is that correct? So the n into n plus 1 by 2 will give me the sum of n natural numbers, right? So if I talk about the very first case, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 would gonna give me 5 into 6 by 2, that is equal to 5 into 3 is equal to, that is 15. Right? So 15 minus the sum of all these numbers, that is 5 plus 3 8, 8 plus 2 10, and 10 plus 1 11, that's gonna give me 4. Correct? So this is the way we can do it. The second case, even similarly, 10 into 11 by 2, that's gonna give me 55. And if I just sum up all these numbers, right, it would gonna be 9 lesser than that. So that is 55 minus 46. That's equal to, right. So what exactly we are going to do is n into n plus 1 by 2 minus sum. If we do, it will directly return me the number itself. Okay. Now, can anyone tell me the pros? Pros I see the time complexity for this solution is big of n only, right? Because how many times this sum will going to get executed? This whatever the function, whatever the thing we have written inside this will going to get executed only a number of times. That's why we are sure that the time complexity we are not exceeding. The second constraint, if we see, right, the space complexity, since we are using only one variable, so that's where we are saving the space as well, and it's again a constant space, so the space complexity is also below 1. We got our outcome, but there is still one cons I see. Can you guys tell me what should be the cons for this? Correct. So there is one cons I see, which is basically, what if the sum, let's say I'm summing up all these numbers, and the numbers in the array are very large, right? I can go till the 10 to the power 6 numbers, and the n can also vary from 10 to the power 6. Right? So what if the 10 to the power 6 into 10 to the power 6 will become 10 to the power 12, right? So what if my sum variable, which I have defined it as an integer, is not able to sum up all these numbers and keep it inside the sum variable itself? There might be a case like that where the sum variable exceeds the integer value itself, right? So in that case, we need to find a better way of doing it. Is the cons clear for all of you? Okay. Because what I am trying to say over here is the sum is equal to the sum plus array of I. And if the array of 5 value, we can take the array of 5 values from 1 to the 10 to the power 6. So assume in the worst case, we have the 10 to the power 6 as all these numbers. Right? Kind of a edge case, but yeah, we can think of it. For that, we need to use, there is a one more approach to do it. Okay, instead of int, we can place long. Correct? We can do that. But the return type again should be an integer. Okay, guys. So I will drop off the session now. Okay. So the Shravani ma'am will carry on with you guys. So just to give, there is a one more method to do it, which is basically using an AGSO. So maybe you guys can try it out and come up with a solution in the next class.
Yeah. Good morning, guys. Please hold on for 15 minutes because this is very important. Today you have a pre-assessment of the product level and all of you must attempt it. Whether you are ready to be in the product batch or not in the product batch, at least give a try and give a shot. So today at 4:30 we have, and in between we cannot disturb you because you have your academics. So I understand that your academic classes also will start now at 9:20, but please pay attention and I'll try to cover up as fast as possible. Okay, I see that 2 of the students have left. So if you come back to us again in the evening and ask us questions like, I'm not able to, understand how to open and all that, then we'll not be able to help you out. So please be in the session. So we are using a different platform for today's pre-assessment. Okay, and we have, you all know that we have 2 rounds, or like one is MCQs and other is coding, right? So MCQs, it is English 10 questions for 15 minutes. The pattern is posted, and aptitude, it is 20 questions for 40 minutes. That is about the MCQs part. And coming to coding, there are 3 coding questions. One is of basic level, second is moderate level, and the third is little advanced level of coding. Okay, so we are using a platform where we will be assigning the exam link to your email IDs, okay, to your registered email IDs that we have. Only to those IDs you will be receiving it, and I am just showing you a demo. I hope you're able to see my screen, and this is how you get the mail. Okay, so you will get 2 mails, okay, because for MCQs it is a different link and for coding it is a different link. I'm just taking the demo login to demo link to show you, because we cannot actually show you the papers, and that cannot be revealed, right? The questions cannot be revealed. So I'm just taking a demo of it, and this is the MCQs part where this is how it appears. Okay, please make sure to read the instructions of the test. Okay, don't be in a hurry, and these are certain basic instructions that you need to have a laptop or desktop, and you cannot use any mobile or tab to take the test, because the reason is if you navigate to other tabs, your test will be closed automatically. And let's say if you're using a mobile, there is a chance that you might get some message and some pop-up messages, or you might get some call. So just to avoid that, we have enabled this feature, and please make sure that you don't take in mobile or tab, take in a proper desktop or laptop. Next is use an updated Google Chrome browser and Windows operating system with uninterrupted internet and power connection. So we have, kept it. This is an important point. So let's say, suppose you have some power interruption, or there is a power failure, power has gone, then you can still go back to the link. You can go back to the mail and you can open the link and you can start it. So the questions will be auto saved, and from wherever you have left, the test will be resumed. So that is what is mentioned in this point. If you can see, it says, in case the test window suddenly closes due to system shutdown or any other reason, click start assessment link in the email and the test will be resumed from where it had left. All the answers marked will be auto saved. But here one more feature that we have enabled is, let's say suppose the exam is starting at 4:30, right? So any power failures and all that, you have to, you'll be able to start only, within the 2 hours. Like, let's say you cannot say that I have got a power cut at 8 o'clock and can I resume my test? Then no, you cannot resume your test, because within 2 hours only, if there are any system shutdowns or any power failures and all that, you will be able to, resume the test. Okay, if you don't, let's say suppose the power is gone for 4 hours and you're not getting it back, then your test until wherever you have taken will be auto saved, and the test will end automatically after 2 hours. Okay, I'm talking about in case of power failures only. So my straight pointers don't come up to us and tell at 8 o'clock that I had a power cut, so can I go back and resume? So in order to avoid all this, make sure to start your test as soon as possible by 4:30. Okay, that is about this page. That is about this point. And the third point is navigating to any other tab or window or clicking any pop-ups or notifications behind the test screen will lead to auto submission, and this action cannot be reversed. So here, what happens is you should not, make sure that when you are opening the test, only your test window and the mail is open. Okay, so if you open any other tab, any Google or any other apart from the test window and email, if you try to open something else, your test will give a warning for 3 to 5 times. You'll get alerts and the test will end automatically, and we cannot do anything about it. And even the pop-ups, like for example, you'll get update of Java version or some kind of system updates you'll get, right? So don't open that. Make sure you don't click on that by mistake also. If you click on that again, that will be counted as one navigation or like one tab switch, and more than 5 switches will lead you to the test closing. So please make sure that you don't do this. And the next point is, this is very important point, I'll show you. Verify your email ID. So you have to enter the email ID correctly, and you should not copy paste it. I'll come back to this point when I show you how to take the test. Okay, and this is the next point is, I told you about this point, right? The power failure point. The next point is test will get automatically submitted once the timer runs out. Like the same thing, like let's say if the duration of the test is 2 hours 35 minutes, right? Today's test is 2 hours 35 minutes. So if you don't complete in the given time, the test will get submitted automatically. So that is something you have to take care of. Next is if proctoring enabled. This is a proctor enabled test. So your laptop. So as of now, we are not keeping it as proctor enabled. Proctor enabled in the sense we have to allow webcams and all, but not every one of you have webcams. So this is a general instruction that will be coming to you, but you don't have to pay attention to the last point because it is not proctored enabled for this test. Okay, so these are the instructions. Make sure, though I'm showing you, but still at 4:30 when you start, please make sure to read each line properly and then only start the test. There is no hurry. Okay, so this is the link, this is the instructions, and here you have a menu called a start test. And when you click on start test, this is how you have to click on start test. And here it is asking to verify your email ID. So you will be getting, as I said, you will be getting test links to your email ID only. And to whatever email ID you have received your test link, that email ID only you have to enter. Like for example, I have received it to shravani@suntechcorp.in. Okay, I have received email to this. Let's say if I'm not entering this email ID and if I try to enter a different email ID, I'll show you what happens. Okay, so I click on proceed, it says unauthorized. So only to the email ID that you have received the test link, you have to enter the same link. And it says, otherwise it says unauthorized, you have not been invited to take this test. So what is the proper ID? It is shravani@suntechcorp.in. So this is the proper ID and I click on proceed. So it is allowing me. And here you have to properly mention your name. So I am mentioning my name as how it is in my list, and select the branch here. Okay, as of now, because this is a demo, it is not showing me. Okay, and here you have to enter your registration number. Registration number is your roll number. Okay, and these are mandatory fields. So I have just clicked it as 1 2 3 4. Don't do it this way. Write your full roll number and click on save. Asif, can you please help me with this? I think it's not allowing to select branch. Asif, are you there?
Yeah, 1 second.
Guys, please wait, please do not leave, because this is a little important, and it is okay even if you're 5-10 minutes late to your academic sessions, because they've already informed the college, so you don't have to worry about it. Please wait and hold for 5-10 minutes, and these instructions are important.
You can show the coding part, otherwise the same thing will be there.
Okay, okay, fine. So I'll, go back and show you the coding point, guys, coding part, because here actually select branch, there's something a problem here. I'm not able to, enter anything here. So there's something. We'll address it. We will check that. So as I said, MCQs is one part that you have to, click and take the test. And after you have completed the MCQs test, you have to come back and you will have a link for coding as well. So make sure to read the instructions. The instructions are pretty much the same and common. So I'm clicking on start test here. After clicking on start test, as if it shows assessment is logged.
One second.
Otherwise, shall I show the, what do you say?
Yeah, previous.
The assessment only. Yeah. Okay, I'm getting few messages in the chat box. I'll address it. So guys, it looks like there's some problem in the, demo link. So I'll show you the main link itself. Okay. So I'm showing you the pre-assessment part. I'll take another link. So this is the MCQs part. Okay. So as I click on start test, this also shows that the assessment is logged as well.
One second.
Try contacting Sridhar. Okay, in the meantime, I'll address the chat questions. Okay, let my team come back to you guys. So few students are saying, ma'am, submitting the test first or last, does it affect the final score? So whoever is this, can you please unmute and talk to me, because I didn't understand what is your question. Because in the last Geeks for Geeks test ranks were given based on submission time. No, okay, you're trying to say like, let's say if the duration of the test is like 20 minutes, and if you are submitting in lesser time, does it affect the score? Is that what you're asking? 5M7, whoever it is? No, we don't have such things. You can submit at any time in the sense, like you can properly utilize the time that is allocated to you. Like today's test is for 2 hours 35 minutes, right? So you can properly utilize that time, and there's nothing like you have to submit it by so and so time. Okay, somebody is asking, ma'am, can we do coding first or should we start with MCQs test itself? You can do either ways, but what happens is, I mean, anyhow, you have different durations for coding and different durations for MCQs. So why do you want to start the coding first? Try with, first start with MCQs only. Okay, Yash Kalyani, good morning, ma'am. Yeah, good morning. What languages do we have for coding? We have C, C++, Java, and Python. You can code in any language. Asif, you're calling Sridhar or shall I once try?
I'm trying from admin and 1 second.
Okay. No, we don't have admin access. That's what I'm saying. That's blocked. Guys, I see that you guys are leaving. Please hold on, guys. Have some patience. Okay. I understand there's something that we tried to show and some issues, but we are trying to rectify it, right? In the evening, if you come back to us and ask us doubts, we'll not be able to help you out with. So please have some patience.
Now can you try refresh the page? Hello.
Yes, I'm trying. Yes.
Coding part.
I'm trying with MCQs. Just a minute. Okay, coding part you asked me to try, right?
Yeah.
Demo coding.
Yes.
So, guys, here I forgot to tell you a point. Okay, so when it is asking you to verify the email ID, don't copy paste from somewhere. Okay, try to enter rather than copying. Okay, that's what is one of the instructions mentioned. Okay.
Yeah, మాకు అసెస్మెంట్ లాక్డౌన్ వచ్చింది.
Okay, so I am writing the enter name. So this is the coding demo I'm giving you guys. So here it is asking you for name. So enter the name and I click on save. So these are the instructions you have to follow. So it is pretty much the same instructions that I have showed you in the email. Okay, and try to read each and every point. And coding also, there are certain different instructions. So first instruction is select a programming language from the list before attempting any question. So that is obvious, right? This is about it. And click compile to execute your code against the sample test cases before submitting your answers. Note, if you do not submit your code, your answer will not get recorded. So please look at this point. So MCQs, what did I say? MCQs, even if you don't save, your answers will be automatically saved. But whereas in coding, there is something called as submit your code. I'll show you. Okay. So you have to make sure to submit your code. Otherwise, whatever answer you have written will not get recorded. Okay. So please make sure to read the instructions properly before you start it. So as of now, I'm just clicking on accept the terms and conditions, and click on start exam. So did you see here? It is on a full screen mode. I cannot switch the tab and I cannot go back. And even if I'm doing like that, then it will give me a warning for 2-3 times. I'll show you how it gives warning also. So this is a sample question where I'm giving the demo for. There are 2 questions. One is the addition of 2 numbers, and the next is learning about the linked list. Okay. So here the first instruction is what you have to select a programming language, whether you wish to do in C, C++, Java. And for today's test, we are enabling Python also. This is demo, so there is no Python here. So let's say I'm clicking on Java here. So for Java, there is certain instructions. So make sure that you read the problem thoroughly. Addition of 2 numbers, the input, output, and the explanation also is given here. And this is the question part of it. And on the right hand side, you will have the window. If you want, you can enlarge this window like this, and there is some snippet already present here, right? So the header part of the snippet and the footer part of the snippet is present here, and wherever the logic is missing, you have to write your code. Okay. And let's say this background is disturbing you and you don't like the color of the background. You can edit the theme also. You can make it a little lighter so you can see in white background. This is pretty much self-explanatory, but still I'm trying to tell you. Okay, this is about it. So after writing your code, what you have to do is there is something called a submit here. So you have to submit it because I have not given any input. That's why it's not getting submit. And let's say I'm giving one space to, I have to click on submit. So it will show if there are any compiler issues. So even if you are doing it for 10-15 times also, let's say you're writing some line of code, then make sure to click submit. So submit can be clicked as many number of times as possible. There is no restriction. And if you don't click on submit, whatever the code that you have written will not be saved. Okay, that is about it. And let's say you're right, compile means what? Like, let's say if you wanted to understand if there are any errors, like I'm removing a semicolon here. So when I click on compile, it shows me that there is some error, there is some compilation error that I have missed. And what line do I have the compilation error also appears here. And it shows whether the result is a wrong answer or a correct answer, and the time that I have consumed and the memory and all also will be visible. So right now I didn't write anything, that's why it's not showing up. But when you write the code, it will completely show up. So I hope I'm clear with this. And after the first question, you are free to choose anything. Like you can either start with second question and go back to the first question, or first question and second question also. Anything is fine, and you have to read the instructions properly and carefully read the complete question, okay, and understand. And again, I'm saying submit is different, compile is different. In MCQs, you don't have to submit. Your answers will be automatically recorded. But in coding, you have to, after you write, you even 100 times also you can click on submit. Okay, that is not any problem. And compile in the sense, if you want to check for any errors, you can do that. And after you're done with the complete test, you have to click on end test and your test will be ended. Now I'll show you about the tab switch. Okay, so this is in a full screen mode. Let's say I'm trying to move out of the window and I am trying to open some other tab. And again, I'm coming to the test tab. So did you see the warning here? It says this violation has been recorded remaining. Here it shows me 24 attempts, but for you, we are giving you only 5 tab switches, not more than that. So after 5 times, it will give you a warning for 5 times and the test will be closed automatically. So make sure that, you don't switch between the tabs and you don't come back again. Okay, so that is about it. Because this is a demo, the attempts of tab switches are set to 225. But because you have a test in the evening, it will be 5 tab switches, not more than 5. Okay, so that is about the coding. Asif, can I try, MCQs?
Pre-assessment take notes.
Okay, fine. So guys, I hope I'm clear with the coding. Before I move on to MCQs, if you have any questions, please immediately ping in the chat box. We are almost done. I'll just show you the MCQs part and that will be completed from our end. In the coding part, if you have any questions, please ping. Otherwise, I'm going to click on end and I'll move on to another thing. Okay, no questions. So I'm moving on to another thing. I'm clicking on end test here. I'm just clicking on submit here and the test is submitted successfully. Okay, so I'm exiting the full screen mode, and after taking the test, again I'm going back to check my link for pre-assessment. Okay, for MCQs. So I'm just showing you MCQs also. Read the instructions properly. Click on start test. It'll ask you the email ID to verify. So enter the email ID and click on proceed. And you have to write your name properly. Select the degree. Degree means you're all from BTech. So click on this BE BTech. Select the branch of engineering. If you are from CSC or EC, or I'm just clicking on electrical, and enter your registration number. That is your roll number. Click on save. And these are the instructions. So pretty much the same instructions that I have told you. And here you don't have any extra instructions that you have to save your answers and all. So that should be fine. And just click on accept, click on start exam, and again the test is going on to a full screen mode. Okay, so these are the questions. And English, so this timer, many of you will have questions. Timer is set for the complete section. For English and quantitative aptitude, you have 55 minutes. Okay, total exam duration, because English it is for 15 minutes and quantitative aptitude is for 40 minutes. So it is for everything. And let's say you're attempting this question, you have to attempt this question and click on save and next. And as you attempt, and there's a negative marking in today's test for MCQs, that is 0.33. Okay, so make sure to attempt only the questions that you are very confident of. And after you don't end the test. Okay, end the test when you have to do after you finish English, after you finish quantitative aptitude, you have to click on end test. So you can start any section. Either you can finish first quantitative aptitude and go back to English, or you can first finish English and go back to quantitative aptitude. And after you're done with all the questions, click on save and next. Even if you don't click on save and next also, next in the sense like let's say you don't want to attempt this question, you have to click on just next. That's it. Next. It goes on to the next questions. Yeah.
Yeah, in exam we cannot switch English or quantitative. For this demo purpose, we have included.
Okay. So guys, one update is we are having a different section and timer for English, and we have a different timer and section for quantitative. So you cannot switch and you cannot attempt as you like. That is the one update. And whatever we are telling now, we'll again put in the instructions also. Don't worry about it. So you will have first section as English. You have to attempt, and the timer will be set for English only. And after you click on end test, then quantitative aptitude section will come, and after you attempt, then you have to click on end test. That is the only change. Okay, and it is pretty much self-explanatory and easy, guys. You have to click on end save and next and save and next. After you're done with everything, you have to just click on end test. Okay, and it shows you like English. I have just attempted 3 questions marked for review, in the sense what, let's say if you want to come back to this question later, you can click on marked for review. So you're not confident about the answer, you can click on marked for review. Okay, that is what I'm trying to say. And when I click on end test, it shows me like how many I have attempted, how many are not answered, and how many are marked for review. If you are fine with this, then click on submit, and the test will get submitted automatically. So only 2 important instructions is that in coding, you have to save your answers by clicking on submit. Okay, and in MCQs, you don't have to submit or something, it will be auto save. And the third instruction is don't switch between the tabs, because it is Windows proctor. The test is it's not proctored for webcam, but switching between the tabs is not allowed. More than 5 times if you switch, then you will be your test will be automatically closed. And there is negative marking only for MCQs, that is 0.33, and there is no negative marking for coding. Okay, And any more questions? We are done from our end. I think, Asif, we have pretty much covered all the points, right?
Yes.
Okay. Guys, that's all from our end. If you don't have any questions, please leave the sessions. If you, please leave the session. If you have any questions, please stay on and ask us. We'll be there for 3 minutes and then we'll also end if you don't have any questions. So somebody is